And we're back for more information from our primary reaction panel, guys. Thank you again for being here. Okay, so before we jump into the big elections, we got to look at one more race down there. We've got Vance Lupus pulled out a 5-way primary in District 115. I mean, that one was crazy. Any thoughts on that? Because remember, there was a trial lawyer Republican running in that. How'd that one happen?
He had a lot of support, even all the way up in Tallahassee, just seeing the people around here, the business community, they were really backing him and supporting him. So he had a lot of big support his way to propel him forward.
Yeah, that was an interesting race. Okay, all right. So we've covered a little bit of Miami. So now we've paid our dues on that one, if you will. Okay, so let's jump back into the governor's race. So we win, and there's an interview the next morning, and stuff gets said, and that's as far as I'm going. It's all on you guys now. What happened? Brian?
Oh, why me? I don't mind, though. What happened? Nothing, other than the Democrats have, I think, already shown their hand. I think they're making a mistake. They're overplaying it, and here's why. White folks, when they use the phrase monkey wrench, monkeying around, and all that stuff, they use it all the time, and they don't like being told that they're racist for doing it. And so the more that Democrat Party pushes that stuff, pushes that narrative that it's a racist term or whatever, that he was being racist, or the dog whistle story, which I'm happy to address as well, it's not going to fly it's going to energize Republicans, particularly white Republicans who don't view themselves as racists.
Trimmel, Danny?
I think that Ron DeSantis, this is actually the second time that he's had a misstep in a media landscape that's sort of hyper-aware to these issues. And back, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but he said some strange things about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and that sort of blew up. It wasn't going to make a difference or anything like that. But I think Ron DeSantis has to understand that he's running a modern campaign, and if he wants to start going maybe towards the middle and getting some of those middle votes, he's got to kind of just watch what he says, whether he wants to or not.
So you're saying it was an accident?
Oh, I'm saying
a blunder.
I do believe that there was no racist intent behind it.
Trimmel?
Opposite view for my articulate friend here. He said that too. Okay. This was intentional in the sense that you planned for this. If you watch the entire clip, it was straightforward, intentional, and hit all the points. And you can see by the response after the fact whether there was intent there. And he didn't come forward with, once you see it, you know it.
Yeah,
and
right.
For those reacting to this, there's a reason why there's a reaction to this. The next day you woke up and you have this planned statement. How could you not? Of all the times you've done these views.
All right.
So what's the advantage you're saying he's going to get by doing that?
Well, let me
Who's
tell
he
you.
waking up? Are there racists out there that have to be blown a dog whistle to say, hey, in case you didn't know it, we have a black governor's candidate that now we have to go vote against? Because you're not doing that. You're not waking those people up. Those people are going to vote against him anyway for that reason.
If we're looking at the Trump supporters and who is there and what has gone on throughout the presidential race and who is backing DeSantis and his constituents that he's after.
But wait. Okay, all
right. Let me rein this in. Okay.
We're good.
So no, it's all good. It's all good. No, but okay. So whether it's that issue or the other bullet points that they were out on the trail, who right now is the front runner in this race, Danny?
Well, I think that for every Republican candidate, it's their race to lose. We don't have the evidence to show that this is a blue state yet. We have quite the contrary. And the most recent example, of course, is Donald Trump's victory. And Donald Trump's popularity has not waned since. And we have a candidate that is directly tied to the president.
Right.
We're going to see. I think to the Democrats' part, they're doing things that they haven't done before. They're doing strange things, and they're kind of getting mocked for it. They're going out into rural counties and trying to expand their base. Andrew Gillum, when he was running his campaign, he talked about expanding the voter rolls. He did that. About 700,000 more Democrats showed up to vote at this primary than in 2014. So, I think though right now, if you're a betting person, you really can't favor the Democrats at this point.
For the tactics used, it will energize the base, both bases here. Those who are seeing it as a divisive act that will get folks to the polls, to maintain the identity in their heads of what America is, and those who want to unify. So that's what the two tracks that we're running on in this race. So we'll see.
Just let me ask one question on that. So on the Democratic side, you're going to have Mayor Gillum and Sean Shaw, two extremely, impressive candidates, and probably from a national perspective, they're in the third largest state. They've got, very progressive kind of viewpoints. I mean, does this become a national experiment with their campaigns?
You said it, very progressive viewpoints, and they're not afraid of talking about it. That's the real question here. They are. That's what they did differently. Gillum promised to have a different campaign, and he's different in that he's doing what Democrats traditionally don't do, which is hide their progressivism. And they are out there, they're unabashed about it. Andrew Gillum, I'm sorry, he is a socialist. He's pushing socialist policies, extreme progressivism. He's not afraid to associate with Bernie Sanders. And I don't think it's going to play. I think you're right. It's Ron DeSantis' race to lose. He just can't fumble the ball. And I think, intentional or not, with the comment, he's got to avoid fumbling the ball in the future.
Right. I mean, every time he does something like that, everybody knows Andrew Gillum again. And that just, Bernie Sanders is already fundraising for Andrew Gillum, small dollar donations. Ron DeSantis definitely just helped that out.
Right.
It's just something to think about.
Yeah,
what we're seeing is people don't have a problem whether you label him a socialist or stick with what he's calling himself, a progressive. And they voted for him anyway.
Right.
And the energy behind what we're seeing is palpable, and we'll see how it turns out.
I also think, though, that his record matters, and that's when I said earlier in the previous segment, the folks who don't follow politics but just follow the general news in Tallahassee were stunned that we elected their failed mayor. That's how they view him. But outside of Tallahassee, that's just not known. He was ignored in the primary. That's how he won.
Well, I think
and he was very progressive.
I think
wasn't afraid to hide.
on both sides, when the guns come out for records and votes and all that sort of stuff, I think it's going to be interesting to see when their voting records and their time in office gets shredded by their opponents for the advantage of the campaign. It should be interesting.
I'm waiting for the debates. Let's see the debates
Right.
come and let them have.
I'm waiting for one in particular, but
Let
stay
them defend
tuned.
themselves.
All right, so let's move back up to the Senate race. So who's going to win the Bill Nelson, Rick Scott race? I mean, who wins that? Prognosticate for me, Trimmel.
Oh, man. After talking about the governor's race, I think what we've admittedly been seeing with Senator Nelson is a very sleepy, quiet race. But with Gillum's victory, I think that will help propel and wake up and energize what has been a very quiet, and Democrats have been
So
complaining
Senator
about
Nelson will ride the coattails of success or lack of success from the Gillum campaign.
that. Sometimes it works like that. You flip it around.
I think Andrew Gillum was the best thing to happen to Bill Nelson so far this campaign cycle.
Yeah.
Bill Nelson, they're going to kind of balance each other out, and they represent both sides of the Democratic Party right now. And it appears that from these recent elections, Nelson's side is waning away. I think he's going to really help Andrew Gillum articulate his message to these voters who might get scared off by some of the more progressive stances that Andrew Gillum has. And so I think when they coordinate, the unified effort is going to be a spectacle.
Yeah, it usually is, but this one more than any. Brian?
No better candidate for Rick Scott to run against. I mean, if you look at all the different possibilities that were out there for him, races he could have. Senate was the only thing. He's got a candidate who's been in a career for 40 years. He's going to make that an ongoing message. He's going to hammer on it, and it's the only way that he could claim he's not, himself a career politician. He's been in office now for 8 years. He's obviously had a previous career. Bill Nelson, by contrast, is just only politics his whole life. Yeah. So it's a dream candidate for Rick Scott.
Right.
Thanks to his political connections. Yes, correct.
I mean, astronaut is pretty cool, though. I'm gonna say.
Can we talk about being? He's not. He won a lottery ticket in Congress to ride the space shuttle because of where he's from. Come on, he's not an astronaut.
Okay.
Give me a break.
All right. He's got the patch.
He got
was on the shuttle.
He got a rocket
Come
ride.
on. That's an astronaut in my book. Okay. Let's move over to Attorney General. Let's go back to this race. Now you got Sean Shaw squaring up against Ashley Moody. Arguably, from the Democrat folks I've spoken to, that was his worst possible choice that Sean could have run against, and vice versa. How do we see that race shaken out? Let's just go. Let's start with you, Danny.
Well, I think both are very likable candidates. They're both from Hillsborough. So I see Sean Shaw making a big campaign issue out of guns. And, you know, we saw him...
Said it right here on this show as well. Yep.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, he launched that, or he promised to launch at the Capitol a couple weeks ago, this task force on gun violence, and he's doing these things already. And I think Ashley Moody, I'm not sure what's in her campaign playbook, but she's going to have a tough fight.
Yeah,
certainly.
for sure. Trimmel?
We'll see how it goes. Like Brian mentioned earlier, that campaign ad, if she's able to replicate that again and flip it and turn it against Sean Shaw with all the sheriffs hitting their message in that ad in all the markets, that might be effective. So, but the ground game, same with the support of Andrew Gillum and Bill Nelson, if they all come together and support each other, that might help Shaw along.
I think she's going to run a law and order campaign, and I think that it's a good counter for what he's going to run, which is that, you know, like you said, the gun issue. I think law and order is a very strong counter to that. She didn't have to change a lot offensively in terms of what she's going to do versus what she did against Frank White.
Well, the thing that I'm curious about on these down ballot ones is Rick Scott didn't come down off the air on even primary night. I mean, how much space is left for these guys to buy on our members' cable systems? I mean, is there even room?
Let me make a couple calls. I don't know.
Right,
I'm not sure what's left.
Right. Well, we encourage them all to buy it all, right? Let's just be clear there.
In 2010, I think he was buying Cartoon Network and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's good.
Everywhere.
I'll help him. I'll sell that one next time. All right, so let's jump to the ag race. So now you got Nikki Fried versus Matt Caldwell. I mean, it's the two of the youngest candidates for statewide office in a long time. I mean, that's probably the most exciting race for the next generation of leaders in the state from that perspective alone. I mean, how does that one shake out?
I don't know that I'd call any race for ag commissioner all that exciting.
Are we just that geeky up here okay.
And I think that it is going to be, I think it's a fascinating political question because I think she is going to try to make a referendum on medical marijuana. And I think that's Caldwell can counter that. I mean, he's going to have to try. So I think he can make it on Second Amendment issues. He did that in the primary very effectively. He can motivate some people there. But I think he also can make a strong case for ag. So
yeah, it's going to be.
The job is bigger than medical marijuana.
Right. And it's obviously bigger than even ag. It's you know, other agencies as well. Okay, so let's go to the fun lottery question of the week, which is running mates. All right. Yeah. Who do you pick for each candidate? So Brian, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I don't know that I'd go with Gwen.
No, we're going to start with DeSantis. You got to start on DeSantis'
I
side.
have to be.
We start on DeSantis, and then you get to go to.
I'm going to cop out, and here's how. They just don't matter unless you have a disastrous candidate. But I just don't think lieutenant governor's candidates matter.
That's a total cop out.
People put so much energy into who's it's going to be. And, I need to play to my strength here, and because I'm a white guy, we did it in 2010. We had a white candidate who was Rick Scott, and we picked a black lieutenant governor candidate, female. And I can tell you, their internal deliberations were exactly this: we need to counter, and we need to appeal to this. Come on.
It's the old playbook that people are trying to.
It's a parlor game.
I'm going to try not to let you guys cop out. It's like, who do you pick? Who's in the well? Who's on deck? Who's in the bullpen?
I've been hearing names thrown around like Ken Lawson, fitting that same playbook of having someone like, you know, a little diversity and all of that stuff on the DeSantis end. But who knows? Right. And what we've seen with this administration, the job is. Just hire me.
It's too bad they can't campaign on getting rid of the job.
Yeah,
because it doesn't do that much.
All right. Well, look, that's all the time we have. Thanks for copping out, but I'm grateful for you guys coming on the show. That's all the time we have for today's show. Please hit us up on our social media tags, and remember to tune in for the next issue of FI TV. Thank you for tuning in.